Hey everybody, so the RX-7's been off the road for a few weeks, really while I kind of determine what I'm going to do about the overcooling aspects. So I looked at a couple of different options, did follow some threads on rx7club.com, the forum over in the US, and looked at maintaining the stock thermostat, but modifying the bypass. And I'll show you a couple of things I looked at there. Obviously that's a very permanent modification. So I also looked at an external thermostat housing and ultimately decided to go with the external thermostat housing, but show you just a couple of thoughts around the modifications as well. So here's one of the things I looked at. Hopefully you can see that. That's the back side of the water pump housing, and that section I've cut into there is the thermostat bypass. So one of the thought processes was to cut this back and then put a fitting into there. That's actually the back side of the thermostat. So that was one option. Put a fitting into there, so come out here with a fitting and then hose to the suction side of the water pump. Obviously would need to block this off. The other option was literally to fill this channel, the bypass channel, with an epoxy and then drill and tap a fitting into there. So very similar, but without cutting, well, I guess exactly the same outcome, but without cutting this away. The cutaway process would really require welding to get all that blocked off. The epoxy is probably more of a home DIY job, which would require effectively filling epoxy down the water channel there so that it filled all the way up. But as I think I mentioned before, that's permanent. Both of those are permanent, and I've decided to go with an external thermostat housing. So here's that's the fittings and pipe work. Basically that's the pipe work that was associated with the external water pump, just running to the stock water pump housing. It's quite simple, it was quite neat and easy to install. However, now I've got a selection of pipe, hose, silicone hosing and pipe fittings. There's the water pump. Also have on here is an additional fitting that screws into there that would allow a bypass to come in. So that will either, what will actually come into here is probably the water heater return, and I will probably drill and tap another fitting for the turbo return, because as the Sakebomb system is right now, both the turbo return coolant and the water heater coolant are kind of dead-ended, because now they're at the pressure side. They return to the pressure side of the water pump, so there's not really any flow associated with those, or negligible. So I'll get that modified so they're on the suction side and get really the cooling system back functioning. Over here, so this is a thermostat. You can just see the thermostat in there. This is actually from a Land Rover, and so the bypass is built into this. Pump comes off of this side. Well, I'll put a link. There's some information associated with this. It will probably be easier than just trying to describe it, because without a picture it's a bit difficult. But as you can imagine now, there's a lot more pipe work involved, and there's not a lot of room to squeeze it all in. So that's the challenge. So I'm not sure if you can really see this, but what I have so far is, I'll try and list out the bends and the sizes, but this is a 90 degree, so 38 mil off the radiator. This thermostat housing, of course, is 35 millimeters, so that's actually a 90 degree with a 38 mil on one end and a 35 on the other. That goes into the thermostat housing. The one side of the thermostat housing, as you can just see there, actually comes around and has this 180 here into the input side of the pump. The output side of the pump, I'm not too sure if we can see that actually. Maybe output side of the pump has a 30 degree 38 mil hose, which is cut down to shorten it as much as possible. Obviously this 180 is a 38 to 38, and then you can't quite see it. There is a little aluminium pipe there just to extend, and then it's a straight 38 to 35 to the thermostat housing there at that point. And then we need to go back up top, I think, to be able to see the rest. From the top here, so from the top, there needs to be a straight hose from the stock thermostat housing down to that aluminium teat there. The other side of that aluminum tee, you can just see, needs to connect to that other fitting on the thermostat housing. So this needs to be about a 200 mil straight, 38. That fitting there, it's that slight angle, could probably do with being like a 15 degree angle actually, but obviously it needs to be a 38 to a 35, so I'll have to see what I can sort out there. Might get away with a straight, might be enough flexibility in a straight, so we'll see. That's it though, it's packed in. It's packed in very tight.